As a youngster, you had a spell down in the Southern Hemisphere. Could you tell us a bit about how that ended up and what it taught you as a player?
Well, I've been in the academy at Worcester for a while, and I developed real good basics there. I'd worked professionally with the academy coaches and was really enjoying it. But I picked up a long-standing injury, a broken leg, and missed a lot of the season. So when it was coming around to pre-season again, I didn't really feel like that was for me. I wanted to play some rugby, so I just flipped the seasons over and went to New Zealand to play in the South Island for a bit. I played for a team called North Otago, just north of Dunedin, and I played a full season out there. I played for a local club, Valley. There was no set structure to it or anything. I just went out via a friend of a friend and had to work full time and get selected for the NPC team.
And how different did you find the rugby culture over there and maybe the way they played and trained? I mean, how different was it to your experiences in England?
Well, I guess having been in a professional environment, playing sort of semi-professionally in amateur rugby was it was just the love of the game, I guess, and what everybody comparing it to academy life where people were day in day out grinding away to some extent and took it for granted in some ways, I suppose. Guys over there were working full time as amateurs do in England, and would be desperate to get to training in the evening and really enjoy it, and that was their leisure time, that was their hobby. So to get that back in my game was something I quite enjoyed and found important. That's not to take anything away from academy rugby, because that's a really important process to go through, and that was where a lot of your discipline and professionalism was instilled in you as a young player. But to make me slightly different from everybody else, I guess this New Zealand thing was just separating myself from the herd, I guess.
A couple of years back, you suffered a bad injury. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, it was a very technical issue with the ball on my foot. I was just jogging around in training, fairly innocuous really, and I changed direction, very sort of low tempo, and I felt a tear in the arch of my foot. I didn't really understand what it was. Talking backwards and forwards with the physios and having regular assessments, we didn't really understand the injury or how it could escalate, and having tried to manage it and play on it week in, week out, it got worse and worse until I couldn't play on it any longer. I lost all the strength in my big toe, and the ball of my foot was agony to run on. I'd basically separated a couple of small bones in there that every time I flexed my toes were separating further and further. So I ended up having a long layoff in order to, I didn't have any surgery or anything like that, I just had a long time of rest, immobilised in a plaster cast, and then one of those boots that you see people wearing in, looks like a space boot, and just had to lay some scar tissue down to try and recover that situation. So the bones are not together anymore, but they have sufficient scar tissue there to stabilise the joint and everything else. So I'm still managing it as we speak. I have to ice regularly after training sessions, try and get the inflammation out of it. I have to strengthen the toe itself, balance work in terms of strengthening my calf and other stabilisers around my ankle joint, making sure they're able to absorb the shock better and take some of the stress off the ball of my foot. I have to do all sorts of exercises in like buckets of sand and rice, clawing my feet to try and strengthen the arch of my foot and my toes, all sorts really.
And that was a real sort of roller coaster time for you. I mean, you were being touted as the next England captain, and then the injury came along. How did you deal with that at the time?
I didn't get carried away with any of that, to be honest. I was just desperate to play rugby, and my foot was stopping me from doing that. So that was my only priority. The talk of captaincy, and it was tough because there was a new era starting with England. They'd picked a young team and they'd started on a new sort of journey with a new crop of players and new management, and I was desperate to be a part of that. So to see all that happening and be so far away from it with an injury was tough. But I was in touch with Stuart and the other coaches, and I knew if I could get myself back on top form, then I'd be in with a chance again and back in contention. So that's all I really prioritised. And once I knew that I was going to have a long rest, and it was easy to get my head around, it was the early days when I didn't understand how to best cope with injury. I didn't understand how I was going to get back to full strength. So it was a lot of variables at that stage, and that was tough.
And is captaining something that you prioritise, or is it a goal of yours in your career?
I don't think it's something I prioritise. I try and act like a captain or a leader, in the way I conduct myself on the field in terms of setting standards, in terms of work rate and professionalism. Most modern teams have got their playmakers and their callers within the team. So you have a line-out caller, you have a plays captain, you often have a defensive captain as well. Even if they're unofficial roles, they're guys that lead in that way. So it's not something I hugely aspire to, but being captain of a team like this would be a huge honour at the same time. And I just try and go about my business, and if the captaincy ever came my way, then I'd really appreciate the opportunity and I'd relish the challenge. It would be a huge responsibility.
And since you made your England debut against Wales under Johnson, how much have you seen the squad evolve, and how different is the squad nowadays?
I guess the makeup of the squad's very different now to when I first started. The old guard, so to speak. There was a lot of experience in the team when I first turned up. There was, guys with a huge amount of caps that had been at previous World Cups, and they very much took a leadership role and led from the front. Under Stuart Lancaster, we had a lot of youth, a lot of very inexperienced guys, but guys that were on form in the Premiership and had a huge amount of potential. So it's quite a different makeup to the team now. But I guess what we're trying to do is grow in experience and give that talent time to grow together and to gel and to excel at this level. So it's quite different in terms of the way we approach things now. But it's a really exciting time to be part of an England team. I'm really enjoying it so far. It's a real challenging environment and one everyone's really thriving in at the moment.
You mentioned it's a challenging environment. I mean, when you made your comeback last year, did you feel like you almost had to start again because of the length out?
I think Stuart and the other coaches went about it really well. So you don't get rushed back into the side. We've seen quality players like Manu Tuolangi pick up an injury after being on fire against the All Blacks, but not thrown straight back in at the deep end in an England shirt. Same with Tom Croft at the moment. He's steadily been able to go about his rehab process and filter back into the team. And it was the same with me. I wasn't just thrown straight back in and say, save us, so to speak, because it was very much a case of, right, come and earn the right again, feel your way back in, get back into the England way and earn your place back. And, it took me a good few games to do so. And that's the way it should be. I don't think you should ever just be given the shirt light-heartedly. It was something you had to work very hard for and, really appreciate when you get it.
And after that victory over New Zealand, you got man of the match and the press were really starting to talk about you again. Was it how sort of satisfying was that after the layoff? Well,
it was just a real good day that all round. We'd taken a bit of stick in the week after the South African-Australia game. Things didn't quite go our way then. The stick we received in the press after the South Africa game I thought was quite unfair, particularly the stuff that was directed at Chris Robshaw. For a guy that played really well on the day, put his heart and soul into it, to come under such fire after the game was tough for him. So I felt for him on that, and we really wanted to. We knew what we were capable as a group. We really wanted to just put that onto the field, and there's no better place to do it than against the world champions, I suppose. So there's a huge motivation for us there, and to have realised that potential, if you like, and to have really put on a good display for the home fans that had been waiting for that for the duration of the series was a really enjoyable day.
This year's Six Nations decider is away to Wales, which could also potentially win you the Grand Slam. Now in 2011 it was a similar situation against Ireland, but the side actually lost. So how much will that spur you on this year to go on and achieve the Grand Slam?
I don't think we really carry the baggage of that because we have a very different team now. And we have a team that's very grounded, built on pretty solid foundations, and goes about each game in a very similar way in terms of we've got those stepping stones to put in place before those foundations lay before we worry about getting carried away with running rugby and scoring tries. We have a few fundamentals that underpin what we do, and we revert to them at the start of each game and in our training week to make sure they're in place. Things like our energy in our defence, the pressure we get on the opposition, the way we exit our 22, and the intensity we put into the breakdown. So we're in a very different situation to what we were then. I guess there's a few of us still around from that era, and we'll be wary of how much the Celtic nations enjoy beating England and would love to spoil our party. So regardless of Wales's form or our form or anything else going into the game, we know it's a huge game on its own individual merit. I enjoy playing at the Millennium Stadium. I am looking forward to that game because it's a great place, there's a huge atmosphere, and Wales are always up for it against the English. It's always a fierce rivalry, and they'll, at Millennium Stadium, will not want to roll over. They'll have a huge point to prove themselves, and will be highly motivated. So we'll make sure we go into the game full on and not getting carried away with anything else that's going on in the background.
And you've been through quite a bit as a player, but what would it mean to you to win this Grand Slam?
I think it's a huge step for this team. I don't think it's the be-all and end-all. I think it's all anyone's talked about since we beat Ireland early on in the series, and there's been a lot of rugby to play since then. It'll be a huge step for us. It'll be a huge achievement, something we're obviously really charged for, and can't wait to get stuck into. But each game's a huge challenge, and we've come through some tough tests so far. But I think Wales at the Millennium Stadium is going to be as tough as they come. So that in its own right is a big one for us.